Alright guys, I got a really big announcement before we start this video. I want to say that I'm very grateful for the majority of y'all that have decided to go out there and support the show on Patreon. I mean, we have almost our entire community over there by now. I think we're closing in on 100 people. I think we're closer to 80 than 100, but guys, we got to keep that goal going. And yeah, I mean, I just want to give a big thank you. Never thought we would be here, and really appreciate everyone who has decided to join the community and who has decided to support the channel. And because of that, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to change the format of how we do things. Because most of the community is already over there, I'm going to change us to having one video on YouTube every other day and one either audio podcast clip, I don't know, but on Patreon, because I know most complaints I have gotten are saying, hey Mason, I want an audio only version of this. I don't want to have to watch the video. And I don't really want to go on iTunes. I think that market is a little saturated, but what I can do is for the people who want that on Patreon, I'm going to move one of our shows over there every other day, and I'm going to upload it exclusively to Patreon with the audio only. That way you don't have to sit there and keep your screen open as you listen. But now let's get into the video and let's talk about Nick Chubb versus Miles Sanders.
That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
So the reason I want to talk about Miles Sanders and Nick Chubb is I'm viewing this as a market inefficiency. I mean, guys, it does not make sense how we are valuing these two running backs at the moment. I understand people want to go out there and people want to be NFL GMs. They want to go out there and try to evaluate talent on their own and not really pay attention to the game that we're playing. I know it would be fun. I know it's fun to fantasize it, but we're not playing the NFL. I mean, we're not GMs. We are GMs of our fantasy teams, and we are GMs of scoring fantasy points. And the way you score fantasy points is not necessarily due to strict running back talent. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, y'all saw that I tweeted out a couple days ago. I mean, the only things that matter for a running back in fantasy is situation, size, athleticism, and receiving ability. And that's all we should really look at. I know some guys want to go out there and want to grind the tape. They really want to go see Zach Moss break a couple tackles and see David Montgomery make a couple defenders miss in the box. And while that is fun, and while it's fun to sit there and grind tape, I'm telling y'all right now, it's sad to say, but NFL scouts and NFL front office personnel are significantly better at evaluating talent than any of us. And I know it's fun to sit here and fantasize that we can go out there and we can say, oh, Nick Chubb is the best rusher in the NFL. Guys, it doesn't really matter, and let's get into why. So first, let's talk about Miles Sanders, who is 23 years old. He was selected in the second round of last year's NFL draft, and he has the size-adjusted athleticism, which is what we love to see. He actually has a 76th percentile speed score, which combines your size and your 40-yard dash time, and compares you to the other running backs at the NFL level. So he has pretty much everything we look for, especially when we look at his receiving game ability. So he sees those three check marks. And I know y'all want to say, but Mason, I mean, he doesn't run between the tackles very well. And guys, I heard the same exact thing from his haters last offseason, yet I go out there, take him in pretty much every single rookie draft. We see that it doesn't necessarily matter if he can't make defenders miss in the box, because the Philadelphia Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, if not the best offensive line in the NFL. And now let's talk about what is a hilarious topic in Dynasty right now. And I don't understand why people want to say it. I think it's because they missed out on Miles Sanders last offseason and they're not willing to pay the premium for him now. And they're going, but Mason, Doug Peterson only uses committees. Guys, this is just funny. Okay, if we look at Doug Peterson's history in Philadelphia, so he's been there 2016, 2017, 2018, obviously 2019. Let's look at the Philadelphia Eagles in 2016. Let's look at their running back situation. They had Ryan Matthews as their lead running back. Ryan Matthews at this point in his career was 29 years old. I mean, are we joking here? Le'Veon Bell, by the time he's 29 years old, he's probably going to be out of the NFL. I mean, what is the conversation? But now let's go to 2017. Who did they have in 2017? They had LeGarrette Blount, who was 31 years old as their leading rusher. So if you're Doug Peterson, you're looking at this team, you're like, oh, hell, I mean, am I going to give LeGarrette Blount 25 touches a game? Am I going to make him my workhorse? Of course not. All these running backs are the same to you. I mean, there's no good running back on the roster. You're just going to cycle through them, and whoever's fresher is going to be in the game. Now let's go to 2018. Maybe it got better in 2018. Guys, no, the lead running back was Josh Adams, who I'm pretty sure was undrafted. And yes, it's fun to watch Josh Adams play. I know he has some of his truthers, but at the end of the day, this is not a special running back. None of these running backs had any significant team investment from the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you're going to come here and you're going to tell me Doug Peterson, oh, Philadelphia always uses running back by committee. Yeah, I mean, we can look back at the past 3 or 4 years and say that's the case just because of the players they had. I mean, it's completely different, and you have to try to evaluate it year by year. And some historical trends, like that small sample size running back committee narrative that we see, just don't hold up if you look at the personnel that the head coach has. So now, I know y'all may be a little bit hesitant to believe me here, but let's go and let's see how the Philadelphia Eagles running back situation was used in 2019. So we go through the first 11 weeks. Yes, Miles Sanders was not really used whatsoever because he was a rookie and they had Jordan Howard, who by many is supposed to be an above average NFL running back, at least in terms of rushing the ball. Obviously, Jordan Howard can't catch the ball whatsoever. But as soon as Jordan Howard is taken out of the game plan and they feel that Miles Sanders is ready to go, even though he's only a rookie and he's only 22 years old, we see a completely different story in Philadelphia. We see Miles Sanders actually average 16 carries a game, 80 rushing yards a game, 4 receptions, and 34 receiving yards a game. I mean, this is good for almost 120 total yards a game in weeks 11 through 16. Now, if I'm looking at these numbers, I mean, this is a workhorse. This is a rookie running back who averages 20 touches a game during this stretch, which would have put him as the RB10 in terms of touches per game in 2019. So if you're getting a top 10 running back in touches per game behind a league-leading offensive line, what are we talking about here? I mean, I know some people want to come in and say, hey, Mason, Boston Scott is good. They used Boston Scott. Look, it was a split backfield. If we look at the same stretch when Jordan Howard wasn't in the game plan and they were using Miles Sanders and Boston Scott averaged about 6 carries a game, 31 rushing yards, and he was used in the receiving game, but that didn't take away anything from Miles Sanders. So now I know people must be saying, hey, Mason, I mean, you're overlooking the Philadelphia Eagles went out there and they added a premier running back. That's why everyone's talking about a running back by committee going into 2020. I mean, they're obviously not overlooking the personnel that Doug Peterson has had in his entire career in Philadelphia, and they are obviously projecting out who else is in that backfield. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, yeah, let's go see who they added in the backfield going into the 2020 season. Yeah, if I'm correct, they didn't add anybody. So we're going into a 2020 season where Miles Sanders, during his starting stretch, was top 10 in the NFL in touches per game. And he only has Boston Scott, pretty much a strictly receiving running back behind him. And people are still trying to tell me that this is going to be a running back by committee. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but let's go to Nick Chubb, who is a supposed workhorse down in Cleveland. So Nick Chubb is 24 years old. He has 2 years left on his rookie contract, so we shouldn't necessarily be too worried about him getting a tank in Dynasty value anytime soon. And now let's look at his 2019 statistics. I mean, in 2019, Nick Chubb averaged almost 19 carries a game, 92 rushing yards, 1.5 receptions, 19 receiving yards, and 111 total yards. Guys, what are we talking about? These are the statistics with Kareem Hunt in the backfield. Nick Chubb is averaging 1.5 receptions a game with Kareem Hunt there. If we look at the total yards between Nick Chubb with Kareem Hunt in the lineup and Miles Sanders without Jordan Howard in the lineup, Miles Sanders has both more receptions and more total yards than Nick Chubb. But yes, I know y'all are saying, Mason, maybe Miles Sanders doesn't get goal line work. Maybe that's why people have Nick Chubb ranked ahead of Miles Sanders. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. Are the Philadelphia Eagles going to give Boston Scott, who weighs 195 pounds, the goal line touches for Philadelphia? No, not at all. I mean, if anything, you can argue that Kareem Hunt may steal some goal line work from Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt has the size. Kareem Hunt's 216 pounds. So if we look at what provides fantasy points, I mean, total yards, we're seeing an edge Miles Sanders over Nick Chubb. Receptions, we're seeing a massive edge Miles Sanders over Nick Chubb. And what else do we need to know? I mean, Sanders is outproducing Nick Chubb in 2020. He's younger than Nick Chubb. He has more years on his rookie contract than Nick Chubb. And if y'all really don't believe me and y'all really think this argument is faulty, I think I'm going to end it here and say one last thing that's going to end the argument, in my opinion. If we look at FFPC redraft leagues, So keep in mind, this is the highest stakes fantasy football platform there is. These are pretty much where the smartest fantasy football players are. I mean, they're going out there spending $5,000 on a fantasy league for 2020. Where are they drafting these players? Let's throw the Dynasty community out the window for a second. The redraft community is drafting Miles Sanders as RB6 and Nick Chubb as RB11. Now keep in mind, this is not Dynasty. This is for 2020 production. So, I mean, I guess maybe it makes sense if you want to value Nick Chubb ahead of Miles Sanders because Nick Chubb is younger. He has more years on his rookie contract. He came into the league after. Oh, wait. Miles Sanders is younger? Miles Sanders has more years on his rookie contract. Miles Sanders came into the league last season. What are we talking about here? If you value Nick Chubb over Miles Sanders at this point in Dynasty, you're not playing Dynasty fantasy football. You're pretending to be an NFL general manager, and really, that's not what we should be doing. Guys, we're playing fantasy football. We're trying to score fantasy points. How you do that is with statistics, not necessarily who is the better pure running back. So that's all I got for y'all, guys. I know I'm going to hurt some feelings with this video, but it is what it is. Had to be said. And guys, like I said, we're only going to do a video every other day on the YouTube channel from now on. All the other videos are going to be on Patreon. If you want to get videos every single day, make sure you go down there. Make sure you join our community. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Have a great day.